by Congress, the Senate. And that took 37 years because America wasn't finished committing genocide. So Emmett Till was lynched in 1955, and then there's a series of other people, and they're not all Black. There were assassinations going on like clockwork. Malcolm X was one. His so-called murderers just now exonerated. So the man's still dead. If they didn't do it, who did? We don't know. Same thing happened with Martin Luther King, where Coretta Scott King was saying, no, this James Earl Ray didn't do it. And she had presented a case to get in the civil case. They were able to prove to at least a civil jury, not beyond a reasonable doubt, they were able to get it that, yeah, somebody in the US government must have done something. But those were the 1960s, those were the 1950s. It still took till the 1980s to get the US to ratify that treaty. But even when they ratified it in 1988, this was in the midst of the war on drugs. Republicans controlled the White House. You'd have to know what happened in 88. You'd have to know what happened in 79 and 1980. So the Republicans controlled the White House. Ronald Reagan was president, and Ronald Reagan won the presidency after helping set up Jimmy Carter to look like he failed during the Iran hostage crisis of 79. So before Iran-Contra was Iran hostage crisis of 79. So Iran went from being what they called democratic under the Shah to becoming very Muslim. And they took some hostages. They let the Black people go, except for one who refused to leave. And then, of course, that caused them to become brutal enemies of the United States. And they did not release the hostages until after the 1980 election, in which Reagan won that election. And they released the hostages on the same day Reagan got inaugurated in 1981. So doggone the coincidences. And it just so happened that Reagan's vice president was a former CIA director named George Herbert Walker Bush. So because of that Iran crisis in 1979, Iran became a sworn enemy of the United States. Now, if you're the sworn enemy of the United States, according to Congress, then how come Reagan got caught selling guns to the enemy? That was treason, but not. So I call it, Shonda Rhimes wrote How to Get Away with Murder. I have my example of how to get away with murder. So America was founded by Freemasons, one of them being George Washington. The Washington Monument is an obelisk idea stolen from Egypt, another example of Alexander the Greek's plundering that's continuing even into this modern day. What happens is that Masons can give a grand hailing where they can conceal all crimes except treason and murder. Now, that's at certain levels where they say, and this is all conspiracy theory, but it seems like at certain levels, you can get all crimes concealed, including treason and murder. So they conceal all crimes, period. And Masonic grand hailing is the basis of white privilege. So I'm like, this was why the Klan, which was a Masonic organization, the Ku Klux Klan was a Masonic organization. And they were able to get away with murder, treason, not paying reparations. And even to this day, if they're doing a grand handling saying, we don't want to pay reparations, they've got Black people who are trying to protect them because they're supposed to conceal the crime. All right, just letting you know. But this gives you an idea of stolen plunder. The obelisk on the left is from Egypt. The obelisk on the right is in Washington, D.C. And if you tried to tell some people that, oh my God, what happened to this slide? You try to tell some people that Egypt is in Africa, they will argue with you. All right, so I have slides that have been sabotaged. All right, let's see. So, since you can't see that, I don't know. It asks the question then, what about Black Masons? And when it comes to Black Masons, then let me see if I can read it to you, because if you can't see it, then I can read it. Hold on. Funny how it's working on my phone, but it won't work on my tablet. So what about Black Masons? Well, in order to become a member of the Masonic fraternity, you first must be a male. Next, you must be free. And then lastly, you must be an adult. So here's where the controversy comes in about Black folks. Are Black Masons free? And that answer becomes yes and no. And the yes is, well, what do you mean yes and no? Well, are the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments valid? Or are they invalid? And that becomes a whole presentation in and of itself. And I have that discussion constantly with various Masons, Black Masons in particular. But I wanted to alert them to the danger that if the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments are considered invalid by a segment of people who might be Ku Klux Klan and other Masons, then that could explain why they think the elections are rigged when Blacks vote. It could explain then why also they think that you don't have citizenship, so they don't want to treat you like citizens. They don't want to treat you as equal, and they sure don't want to treat you like you're free. So if they think it's invalid, and what would cause them to think it's invalid? Is it a valid invalidation? And it very well could be. And was that some of the things that people were trying to get Trump to please, please, please tell? And maybe the reason he didn't is a whole nother seminar. Because there's reasons to not tell that secret. But if the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments are invalid, then elections are rigged. That is true. And if these amendments are valid, which is what I'm saying, if the amendments are valid, then why are Blacks still not accepted as brothers? And this is just among the men, mind you, because women are a whole different subject. All right, let's go to brothers and sisters or foster parents and adopted parents. I don't know why this picture is messed up. Anyway, we're having trouble being accepted as brothers and sisters by people who don't want to believe we're free. And my question becomes, you're right. I'm not your sister. I'm your mother. And here is why I say that. Exodus to Mars was a skit that we're going to do tomorrow, and it's going to talk about extraterrestrials and how we make it all terrestrial. And quite honestly, what we're talking about here is that wolf that you saw that was nursing the Romulus and Remus twins, was that wolf Offset, also known as the star or star system, Sirius. The Sirius star system is known as the dog star. Wolves are in the dog family, the canine family, and the Latin word for that family is lupa. All right. The female wolf that nursed Romulus and Remus was called Lupa capitotina. And what this is important for is that the word lupus, this whole female dog that, or being found by wolves and being cared for by wolves and being raised by wolves. Who was the wolf? That was a Black woman. The word lupus, or which means wolf, it's a disease that affects Blacks more often than whites and women more often than men. So therefore, lupus is often a Black woman's disease. The Dogon, and notice the root word of Dogon to white people is dog. The Dogon of Mali also claim to have been visited by an extraterrestrial mermaid people, or mer people, if you want to call them, from the Sirius star system, and Black women also were used as wet nurses during slavery. What we're trying to say is that ever since that story about Romulus and Remus, we have been white's foster mother. We saved their life. They love that Lupa wolf. They really do. Because Lupa saved their life. Now, where do Black men fit in all of this? Well, quite honestly, the Black man is Mars or Heru Dashur. If you believe that Blacks are the Egyptians, if you believe then that the name for Mars from Kemet or Egypt is Heru Dashur, if you believe that Heru is the son of Osset and Osar, if you believe that, then you start to see some of these connections with the stories from Egypt that are being borrowed and some people would say bastardized under Roman law. A story in Egypt where Osar and Set were brothers, and Set killed his brother, but Set was not rewarded, he was punished in the end. They don't like that story. They want to change the story to protect the guilty. But look at where these stories are coming from, and also look where words are coming from. The Hebrew word for Martians is ma'adi. When I told that to one person, they said, "You're saying ma'at." And I realized, even though in Hebrew, they spell it with a D, ma'adim, when people talk, ma'atim and ma'atim sound very similar. And ma'at is the Egyptian goddess of law. Under Hebrew Martian stories, the Ma'adim were subterranean, like Osar in the underworld. So if the Black woman is the adoptive mother of Mars, and the Black man is the adopted father of Mars and Remus, then we now have where we can tell them we are free because we're your parents. And that's important to go forward so that they know this is their story and their story. This isn't even our history. This is their story. And yet, who are we? And they know who we are. You see this beautiful woman? Her name is Lupita Nyong'o. She is from Kenya and Mexico. No, she's not Mexican at all. Her parents were from Kenya and they lived in Mexico, and they gave her a Mexican or Spanish name. Lupita means River of the Wolf, and it's a girl's name. Are the Kenyans telling us something? So imagine a world where you're rewarded for killing your brother. Under that system of just us, it lets some people get away with murder and thus be above the law. Well, such a system is quite chaotic. You have just described how to make chaos. When some people have to keep the law and some people don't, chaos is what happens. Chaos is on the streets in segregated Black neighborhoods because of imported drugs. A person who would kill his brother would also kill his parents, both your real parents and the adopted parents. So let me ask, how did that she-wolf feel when Romulus killed her other baby? And if being a Martian or a god of war, is that a good excuse to go around killing anybody? So I'm just saying that a person who's above the law won't stop at breaking the law just once. All right. These are the CIA cases that I'm going to talk about real briefly so that I can let the other speakers get their turn. The CIA cases, first honor Gary Webb, because one of the things that happened last night during Detroit's Reparation Task Force meeting with Councilwoman Mary Sheffield was that there was a talk of where's the place for allies. And one ally that I didn't get to pour libations for, I will pour some now, is Gary Webb. He supposedly shot himself in the back of the head twice, execution style, in 2004, while George W. Bush was president. Let me tell you why I have problems with that story, but he is definitely dead and he is definitely ruled a suicide. 2 bullets in the head, suicide. Wow. Anyway, he wrote Dark Alliance, the CIA, the Contras, and the crack cocaine explosion. This also was a series that was published in the San Jose Mercury News. Webb's 1996 series in the San Jose Mercury News and Congresswoman Maxine Waters sparked an internal investigation of the CIA because it accused the CIA of drug dealing. Of course, the CIA found itself not guilty of any wrongdoings. Now, what Webb wrote about was an LA Black drug dealer named Freeway Ricky Ross, who was incarcerated for his crimes, but he was supplied cocaine by Nicaraguan Contras Civil War sympathizers, allowed to get away with drug dealing murder under the national security guise of the CIA. Now, even though these were California cases that initially that were filed against the CIA, these cases did not allege genocide, just violation of civil rights. So what I did differently in the lawsuits that were filed for Florida, Michigan, Louisiana, New York, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and North Carolina was include an allegation of genocide and conspiracy RICO racketeering. And then by including that, it also, I asked for any of the judges to disclose their Masonic affiliation and disqualify themselves. Some did some did disclose their Masonic affiliation, but none disqualified themselves, and they always ruled against me, and I'm not a Mason or Eastern Star. All right. On the left, you will see pictures of Gary Webb, who supposedly killed himself in 2004. This is Freeway Ricky Ross on the right, and he is out of prison, thank God. So I just wanted to pour libations for Gary Webb and say thank you, because you helped get Ricky Ross out of prison, and I got a chance to meet him at the Million Woman March celebration in Philadelphia a few years ago. All right. A few last highlights of the CIA cases. First of all, books to read. You can read mine, Revealing Mistaken Identities. And then also get the book Bagman, The Secret Life of Albert Vincent Carone by Eric Stacy. A little history, cocaine was legal in America until 1914 when it was criminalized by the Harrison Act. So cocaine was so plentiful, it was even in Coca-Cola. That's where Coca-Cola got its name from. It claimed, in order to criminalize something that was already legal, they had to claim it did something very bad. So it turned timid Black men into raping white women. That's how they got the cocaine criminalized. Then the Harrisons, of course, you'd have to know about this political family because there are certain political dynasties in this country. Kennedys, Bushes, Adams, and the Harrisons. Harrisons, these were big time slaveholders, and so big that some of them might even be in my family. Oh, Anita, you're related to a president. Is this the way y'all want to be related to a president? All right. In the fictional version of The Godfather, author Mario Puzo also described a fictional mob meeting in which gangsters decided to keep their drugs in segregated Black neighborhoods. But the reason I said to study about Albert Vincent Carone is that he claimed to be the CIA money man that was supervised by Colonel Oliver North. And when he was dying, he told his daughter that the CIA wanted drugs in America's Black neighborhoods in order to cause pharmaceutical slavery. Now, this was not just a dying declaration to his daughter, but he also uttered words to this effect to more than one witness. That's just some of the evidence in the CIA cases. But what happens when the attorney becomes a witness and a plaintiff? I don't know if some of you are familiar with that objection. Objection, counsel is testifying. Well, counsel started testifying when she started becoming a victim. I never used drugs. I never used cocaine. I don't know what that's like. So I have no idea about that life. But I started asking the question whether the Federal Reserve was laundering drug money. And that's when some COINTELPRO stuff really started happening. COINTELPRO didn't end in the 1960s and 1970s. So just a little bit of what happened to me, my family and I, not me. So that when you hear 7 car accidents on or around my court deadlines, and you're thinking Anita is a horrible driver. No, it's not just me, my son, my mother, my uncle, honestly, but I was in the car when it happened. Oh boy, it was just bad. So I complained to the federal courts that I was having these reasons for asking for delays, or just these little sabotage things that keep coming up over and over and over and over again. I complained, but I got no protection. Then I got disbarred from practicing law without due process. In addition to losing cars, because the car accidents. Imagine my family and I lost houses, jobs, money. I mean, I'm still being blackballed. But I ran from persecution in Florida to North Carolina, then from North Carolina back to Michigan, where I'm from. And then when I can't even tell you what caused me, 3 car tires blew out at the same time. In my uncle's car, 3 tires at the same time. They told us it was dry rot. That's when I think I went to Canada. If that wasn't a time, then it was one other car accident. Oh no, it was the one where the brake line was cut. When the brakes failed, okay. But I went to my mechanic. He said, oh, these were cut. And I said, okay. And that's when I went to Canada. Canada is 15 minutes from Detroit, y'all. So, but they weren't too happy to see me. And so I asked for asylum in Canada. You know how they say you can go to Canada the Underground Railroad. They shut that thing down. Canada called America's human rights violations irregular, but still denied my asylum claim. So after years in Canada, I went to Israel, Palestine. And it took years so that they gave me time, and it took years, but still, Canada said no. So this was even before I left that I added myself to the case as a plaintiff, so that even after disbarring me, a plaintiff still has standing. And so I took the case all the way to the US Supreme Court, and that's what exhausts the domestic measures, so that there's at least one CIA case that's able to go to the World Court, because it alleged genocide. Therefore, it invokes the Anti-Genocide Treaty. You just can't take a civil rights case and say, well, this is genocide. You didn't put that in there, because part of what this treaty does, it allows the country to solve the problem itself before you go to the World Court. Since we did all that 20 years ago, we allowed the country to solve the problem itself. And over 20 years, I don't know about you, but has genocide gotten better or worse since we allowed America to solve the problem itself? And they did not. All right, so we now have a complaint to the United Nations where I've sent what is called a bookmark. And other people are going to understand what I mean by a bookmark. It's like, the rest of it is coming, but this is what I'm sending you right now because my life may be in danger for doing this. So now you have at least the gist, and the rest is coming. The full complaint requires providing legal documents, and some of these could be lost and stolen after moving around and over 20 years. And so court documents can be retrieved. Yes, you can retrieve them from the court, but then cover-ups happen. So another problem, of course, with taking a complaint to the United Nations, that even though genocide has no statute of limitations, witnesses may be dead, particularly after the pandemic. Some of the testimony has been preserved through various means, but we have to look at these other weaknesses in a potentially 20-year-old case. Not that there weren't weaknesses before, because they were assassinating people before. I mean, Gary Webb just happened to fall on 2 bullets. So yeah, people just missing. But we're alleging conspiracy also. And in that conspiracy, there can be acts that have been committed in furtherance of the conspiracy. And that's where what's going on in Michigan becomes very important. When Flint received poison water, Flint is a predominantly Black city, 60% Black. This happened in 2014 after the 1951 Anti-Genocide Treaty. Well, poisoning water falls right there smack under genocide, especially when it's a predominantly Black city. I had one person say to me, well, it wasn't completely Black, it was 40% white. Well, that's 40% collateral damage. That's what they do. But Benton Harbor, 85% Black, just got some poison water. And Detroit, 80-something% Black, and the water in the Detroit public schools before the pandemic was found to have lead in above what is acceptable levels in more than half of the Detroit public schools. In the schools, the students are not just predominantly Black, they're almost 90% Black. And under that scenario, if you have water that's in the schools that has lead, it leads me to question if the water going to the houses have lead also. So with that, we have something to work on, and that's why we need reparations. And we can do it internally within the United States. But in case Romulus hasn't learned the lesson to stop killing his brother, we have to go to the world court. Thank you. All right. Well, our next speaker. Okay. Yes. All right. Our next speaker. Let me pull up his bio. We have Hashim Ali Jabbar. I'm multitasking. And he is the youth commissioner for the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America on the national level. So, here we go. He gave me his bio. Hold on. And of course, all right. As if craziness hasn't happened enough. Well, I know he is in DC. I know that he is a very eloquent speaker. I have seen him become one of those speakers that has his own website and is in command or demand around the country. So without further ado, tell us more about yourself and please welcome Hashim Ali Jabbar, H.A. Jabbar, from NCOBRA Youth Commission National.
Peace and blessings. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Yes, there you go.
Are we being genocided? Absolutely. It's a question, unfortunately, that answers itself. In 2022, you did mention the pandemic or the plandemic, some would say, that we're under some of the challenges that we're experiencing in the areas of health. But the real question is, what are we going to do? That's the real question. Are we being genocided? I'm 43 years young. I inherited genocidal conditions from my father. My father, not a light-skinned man, not a fair-skinned man, broad nose, thick lips. He inherited genocide from conditions from his father, and so forth and so on. And so war has been declared on us as a people. That's not a question in any regard. But again, what are we going to do about it? It's 2022. The challenges are not lessening, they're increasing. They took all our assets. They took our inheritance. They took all our land. They made us put us in a position that we have no inheritance. We have no economic basis by which to feed ourselves. We have no land to grow any food. We have no animals to herd or to develop so that we may clothe ourselves. And so we're in a condition of dependency. We're in a condition of superior dependency. But what we do have, you mentioned earlier, the Japanese were ones that received reparations. The Japanese very ingenuity.
Yes, that's how you say it.
So we have our minds and we have our bodies. You know, we have a divine spirit in which to create. Hip hop music is the number one music in the world. You know, a brother said to himself, he said, sometimes I sit and wonder how I keep from going under. He put a beat to it, and now he's singing it all over the world. You know, they're wearing the same clothes that we wear, that he wears, that we've worn, the slang that we talk. And so we, in our creative abilities, have to ask again, are we being genocided? Absolutely. But what are we going to do about it? The teacher is the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. He says our unity is more powerful than an atomic weapon. My grandfather, R.A. Adams, Polk County, Texas, He said his father told him, one stick is easy to break. He was a country boy, rode horses bareback. He said one stick is easy to break, but a bundle of sticks, 2 and 3 and 4 or 5 or 6 sticks together, that's very hard to break. And so that's a simple lesson taught to a child, to stick with his brothers and sisters, that if they stuck together, they would be hard to break. But if they came apart, they would be very easy to break. So our challenge is, how do we unify ourselves? That's one of our greatest challenges. How do we work together? Some are Muslims, some are Christians, some are light, some are dark, some are short, some are tall, as taught to us through the Willie Lynch letter. All of our differences, but look at all of our similarities. Do we have a shared history? Do we have a shared culture? Do we have a shared greatness in all of the sports, all of the entertainment, all of the math, all of the sciences, all of the engineering, all of the inventions that we've given to this country they call America? Yes, we have a place here in America. So I want to talk about some strategies and tactics very briefly in this fireside chat. South Africa, I'm picking up a little article. Our great brother in Philadelphia, Brother Minister Ari, has a guide that he shared with me about disinvestment. So to invest is to take some of your assets and to help take that asset and to put it into a location where you will make it grow, to make the business grow, to get a return on your investment, to make that initial asset increase so that you have your initial investment plus additional, that what you will call profit. And so Brother Ari said, we don't want to invest, we want to divest. So Brother Hashem, who do you bank with? You have money coming to you every 2 weeks or every week, or you have business invoices come through this account and that account. Who do you bank with? Do you bank with your own? Did you listen to your grandfather? Are you like those sticks that are sticking together? Or are you banking with your brother, or are you banking with the other? That's a valid question, isn't it? Where do you send your children to school, Brother Hashem? Are you sending your child to learn about your own with your own? Or are they learning from your sister and your brother, or are they learning from the other? So Brother Ari said, we don't want to invest, we want to divest. So one of the few things that the Caucasian or the pale-skinned European respects is money and violence. I'm not going to talk about violence today on the Zoom channel, but I will say we have the right to defend ourselves. We have the absolute right to defend ourselves, our lives, our families' lives, and those that we love. But on the strategies and tactics that we're talking about today, going back to not an investment, but a divestment, going back to those strategies and tactics, Martin Luther King is known and raised up because he said he had a dream. Well, I don't want to talk about a dream today. I want to talk about reality. I want to talk about what he did while he was awake, while he was living, and while he was working, working. Not when he had a dream, but when he was working, the actions that he took. He led a boycott. He said, I don't want to invest, I want to divest. If you're not, in slang words, you're not rocking with me, you're not messing with me, I'm not messing with you. I don't want to sit at the back of the bus. I want to sit wherever I want to sit. You know what? Slang terms. Forget your money. F your money. F your bus. I'm a walk. I'm not going to invest. I'm going to divest. He made a sacrifice. He led a sacrifice. I'm going to walk a mile. I'm going to walk 2 miles. I'm going to walk 3 miles. Because you don't mess with me, I'm not rocking with you. I work hard for my money. My money is important to me. How I use my money is important to me. Those that I spend my money with should be those that are important to me, and I am important to them. So in African terms, we call it reciprocity. We want some reciprocity in our money. And if you, as a corporation, feel as though we don't deserve reparations, I shouldn't spend any money with you. Shouldn't spend any money with you, my hard-earned dollars. And so in South Africa years ago, I'm learning that Coca-Cola was boycotted. They boycotted Coca-Cola in South Africa. He said, don't drink any Coke. No. Coca-Cola is the large international business in, if not every country. Tell me which country doesn't have Coca-Cola products. South Africa, they said, you know what? People are not blacks because there's so many, right? Blacks are not drinking our products. They're boycotting us. They're giving us a bad name. They're taking our products off the shelves. We're losing market share to our competition. And this is costing us money. We don't want to be divested in. We don't want money to leave us. We don't want a bad reputation where we say in these streets, we're going to leave South Africa. Matter of fact, all our assets, we're going to sell to the brothers and the sisters. All our assets. We're going to sell Coke in South Africa still. But we're not going to have any assets. We're not going to pay South Africa any taxes. And we're going to give it to the brothers and the sisters and let them have a significant portion of the sums and, give us a little kickback. So that's a way to negotiate. Can you say it with me? Negotiate. We need some terms of negotiation. White people respect violence and money. So we're talking about money tonight. So we have to look at all angles in our local jurisdictions, wherever we are, on who and how we spend our money, who we spend our money with and how we spend our money with, who needs to be boycotted, who needs to we step, who supports us in reparations and who doesn't. If a politician doesn't support us in reparations, that should be a line in the sand. That should be a question to all of these politicians. Do you support local race? Well, because if you're not rocking with me, then I'm not rocking with you. I like a little reciprocity. If you're in a relationship, if you're married to a spouse, you said heterosexual male, so I'm gonna go ahead and enjoy my heterosexualness and thankful for my beautiful wives and kids and Kara Jabbar. But in a relationship, you have to have reciprocity. You have to have a give and take. Some days you up and some days they are down, and you have to be able to lift up when one is down, because next time you'll be on the downside and somebody else can lift you up. And so we need reciprocity with our money. If you're not rocking with me, I'm not rocking with you. Do you shop at Target? Do you shop at Home Depot? Where do you spend your dollars at? Look at your bank statements. Let's question, where do we spend our dollars at? And are these corporations that support reparations? Now, Brother Ari, Minister Ari, he did a terrific job in research. The Philadelphia chapter did a significant amount of research of corporations specifically that, were taking part in the slave trade or benefited in some form or fashion. But that was some years previous. But we're saying in modern day and time that we should be boycotting Black Saturday or Black Friday. We should be having our own, every day should be Black Friday. Every Friday should be Black Friday. But in business, you don't want your business in the red, is what they say, because that's considered losing money. You want it to be in a black, right? We'll say, no, you don't get the black this Friday, okay? You because you haven't shown your support for reparations. How do you spend your money? We have to talk about that. We have to look at that and begin again to form our own credit unions, to form our own monetary associations. I'm reflecting now. I have a bank account at a Black bank here in Washington, D.C. I also have another bank that I'm banking with. I'm just being, what we say, transparent. I'm doing some banking with the other, but I have to reassess, should I do more with my brother? How are we controlling our monies? Are we being genocided? Absolutely. Our children should know that by now. I didn't know that as a child, but I should have. But if I was being taught at the schools of my sisters and brothers and not the others, I would have known that. Are we supporting Black education? Are we supporting Black teachers? A public education system, okay, that's a system, and that is an option. But we need an option that we own and control. We talked about inheritance. We want a school that our children can inherit. Not for just one generation, but for 2 and for 3 and for 4 and for 5 and for 6 and for at least 7 generations. That's that commitment that we're looking to. So we say we want reparations. We're not looking for today. 7 generations is approximately 120 years. Approximately. That's a short period of time. Think about that. That's a short period of time. 120 years. We have to make sure we've inherited the situation that we're in. We have to make sure that we don't pass that same thing on to our children. You said a lot of people have transitioned with this pandemic. A lot of people have made that transition. And so we don't want to make that transition without getting our repair for the generations to come. Let me go back into the treasure chest. I want to look at our 2019 speaker, the keynote speaker of the NCOBRA convention. It was June, I believe, of 2019. I'm going to read some excerpts from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when he spoke the keynote lecture at the NCOBRA convention in Detroit. This is a powerful understanding of our strategies and our tactics that we need to apply, including the boycott, including the divestment. Quote, Mr. Muhammad said, we want freedom. We want a full and complete freedom. In Cobra, don't you want that? The NAACP, don't you want that? The Shrine of the Black Madonna, don't you want that? Whatever church you belong to, don't you want a full and complete freedom? Let's unpack it then. We want to be free. We want a full and complete freedom. Is that what you want? Because that's your wife, that's your children, that's your coworker with your envy and jealousy and your self-hatred. What do we really want? Why should you die unfulfilled? Why should you know you have this talent, this wonderful gift, and you die without developing it to its fullest and giving it back to God for his glory and feeding human beings with your gift? We want justice. We want equal justice under the law. We want all of our organizations. We have rules. We have laws. You want equal justice, but do you get it? Do you make people bow down to you, or do you encourage yourself and them to bow down to the Creator and free themselves? So that do you make people bow down to you, or do you encourage yourself and them to bow down to the Creator and free themselves so that they can rise like cream to the top? We want justice applied equally to all, regardless of creed, class, or colors. That's the Muslim program. So if somebody comes and they say that they aren't Muslim, and are you going to deny them? That's not what your teacher said. If they come with a color that you don't like, but they're willing to bow to your leadership, you're going to deny them because of their color? We want equality of opportunity. We want equal membership in society with the best in civilized society. That's what we want. A serious question. Do you think America, as she is presently constructed, politically, socially, economically, religiously, do you think that America wants you to have that kind of freedom? Well, there was a man from Alabama who helped the messenger to buy land in Greene County, Alabama. One day he called me and pulled me to the side. He said, Farrakhan, we can take Alabama. We can take Alabama if those who once lived here came back home and those who lived here got the right to vote. We could take the state. Imari Obadeli, quote, Imari Obadeli in Republic of New Africa went south, and he claimed 5 southern states. He understood what justice looked like. If you were in your own nation, you could educate your children the way they should be educated. The education of white America is poison to the black, the brown, and the red, and even the poor white. Why do you want to stay under that kind of system? Now you're telling, now they're telling, now they're telling you they're going to vaccinate if you don't accept vaccination. You can't go to their school. What a blessing. Just imagine, what do you think they fight so hard for us to use the right to vote? You fought for it, you suffer for it, you died for it. Let's use it to our advantage. I'm saying to those who love reparations, to those who love justice, let's mark out some states. It may take us 50 years, but if we become the power in those states, we have enough lawyers to make judges. You all have the intelligence, black people, to run the state legislature, become the appellate court justice, state Supreme Court justice. When you run the state politically, then you have a chance to run it economically. The federal government has to give us some money. Quote, reparations can come back to us like this. We aren't paying taxes anymore. You have to get the government to agree. But when you're running the state, you can say, we want the tax dollars of black people put in the treasury for our use. When we begin to master it politically, then you begin to master it economically. It's all about land and the ownership of land, not dollars. These are weak today, in case you haven't noticed. In a few days, the dollar may crash. It's land that you need. You need your own agriculture. While money has power, we need to unite the dollars and buy as much land as possible. You just have to have a vision. After a while, if they don't like us, we become state. National Guard, we become the police. We have over 500,000 in the military. We can negotiate. Negotiate with what? If you have 5 states with an outlet to the sea, with fertile and minerally rich land like the Delta and Mississippi, that's where they got theirs. Just have a vision and work towards it. Stop singing songs talking about reparations. Let's plan it. Let's do it. That's what the Mormons did. They own Utah. They had a strange religious philosophy, but they made their white brothers like it. You're gonna go, you gotta be bold. Sit around begging a white man to be better. You can make him better with the power of who you are. Brothers and sisters, migration is a natural phenomenon. Migration happens because of weather, happens because of snow, rain, tragedy, state of emergency. Migration is a natural occurrence. We migrated from the South up north from occurrences, we'll say, right? Occurrences. We migrated, but we can migrate. We can find a city in Alabama, in Selma, in Mississippi, in Mound Bayou, in Jackson, and get with some of our own and buy some land and develop it, like Nicole and Cobra has done in Mississippi. We can become the state legislature, the judge, the appellate, the police, the state police. He said we can run the state, but you got to have a plan. It might take a little time, he said, but stick to it. That's a commitment. But this is going to take an aggressive type of an approach. That's an aggressive approach. That doesn't happen. It doesn't occur. There's a force behind it that causes it to occur. So brothers and sisters, between boycotts, putting power and pressure on our enemy, on our opposer, on the corporations that are not in support of reparations, we can create change. Do we think that we're going to get justice from the unjust? Well, based on our past history results, we can see what we've gotten. We have to keep up the pressure so we can negotiate. We got to keep up the pressure so we can negotiate. But white folks respect money and they respect violence. So we're talking about how to divest, how to redirect our monies, how to redirect our positions, our stations in life, and how to take territories and claim it for our own. It takes unity. It takes those sticks that stick together. It's 8:45. I don't know how much longer I have, but I had one last thing I wanted to share. The 5-year economic program. Wise man, it takes just a few words from a wise man to create a very broad understanding. A wise man, Elijah Muhammad, a man with a third grade education who built an $80 million empire. He said he met God in person. I don't know. You look, yeah, did he meet God in person? Hey, he built an $80 million empire. He met somebody. He met somebody. That great man, Elijah Muhammad, in his book, Message to the Black Man, he said, the 5-year economic program is what Russia did. It was a savings plan. Russia did it, and so can you. He said Pakistan did it, and they were successful, and so can you be. Just two sentences. Just two sentences. A 5-year economic program. So he did the 3-year savings program. He said, Black people, I know y'all too impatient. We're gonna do 3-year savings program. For 3 years, he had, people from all over the country bringing their own nickels and dimes. And whose bank? The Black bank. Put your own nickels and dimes. And he invested their nickels and dimes in land. He said they're having supply chain problems today. Elijah Muhammad, through the 3-year investment program, savings program, he bought agriculture, land, grew crops, had canning factories, had food distribution systems, raised chickens, had egg factories, had obviously the Final Call or Muhammad Speaks newspaper, had beef breaking and lamb breaking plants, all of which he was employing people, had transportation trucks, refrigerated transportation, imported fish from Peru, brought to he said if we had an outlet at the port, right? Brought in fish from Peru, negotiated with foreign nations to bring in fish to the country, gave jobs to his people to transport the fish, had the fish distributed to all the mosques, to different churches, to the various schools, and he would give the brothers jobs. He would go in the neighborhoods and ring the bell, fish for sale, feeding the children. Everybody's eating, distributing the money, rotating the money in the community based off of an economic program, saving our dollars, investing our dollars together. He was creating jobs for who? Us. Who's going to create jobs for us today? Us. The 5-year economic program, I went into the library, I went into the study, I went into the prayer closet with it, put it under the microscope. I found out they say it started in Russia. That's how Russia built their nation, and then China did it. They say it started in Russia, but it was a communist faction, and then it went to China, did it, and became successful. And then you saw this one nation do it, and you saw Germany do it, and then you saw Ghana put on a 7-year program. Then you saw Haile Selassie put on a 7-year program. This is a true and tested system. The 5-year economic program.
Wow. All right. I mean, that is phenomenal. And we may get to hear more about that tomorrow, because I feel like I'm cutting all of it short, because we wanted to make sure to get Empress Philae Chianusu. And I know she's going to say, how did you mess that up? It's like, because I've practiced it and I practiced it and I practiced it. And then when I'm saying it, it still comes out wrong. So I always called her Empress Chi anyway. Anyhow, she gave me a biography, but we would be 20 years reading this. And I'm trying to get everything in, because if you all can hang with us until at least 9:30, I wanted everybody to have a chance to give questions and comments, because I didn't want you to just be listening. I wanted you to talk and interact. Is the chat open so that they can at least chat? Is the chat open? All right, chat is open. Okay. So in the chat, everybody, just type as fast as you can, because I'm going to see who does it fastest. I want to see who types in Million Woman March fastest. And I'm not talking about putting MWM. But Oh my God, who's this? Janae did that fastest, million women. All right, one more. We know who the fastest was. Adelia, Million Woman March. All right. All right, we got people who are awake. Very good. Okay, Empress, Filet, Chia Nisu. She said, shut up, Nita. All right. She put together the largest gathering in the world of women anywhere. And this is definitely making Black history. So we're talking about October 25th, 1997 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So she brought all of these people together, and there are so many pictures of it. Winnie Mandela was there, and I'm going to go into some of her that Empress is an educator. She's a strategist. She is an independent researcher, and you can tell that she also has a great deal of education. She's received awards from the Congressional Black Caucus, Whitney Young Award from the Wharton Business School, Drum Major Award from the Martin Luther King Nonviolence Organization. And she also has an honorary PhD in African religion, spirituality, and that was at the request of Dr. Kwabena Ashanti, and that's the author of the Willie Lynch letter. So, without further ado, I want to present to some and introduce to others a friend of mine, but also her own dynamic Black history, Filet. Chief. We're calling you Empress Chief. Go ahead.
Yes. Greetings, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Sister Anita. And one kind of correction, I'm not anyone's friend. I'm your sister. I'm your associate. I'm your whatever you want. And the reason why I stopped using friend is because when I was a child, that's what I called everybody. And most people do. That's my friend. That's my friend. You don't know any better, right? So when you get to be an adult, you really understand and understand, as some say, some realities about friends, begin to call things as they are. I have associates.
Empress, you froze and we lost. What happened? Uh-oh. Empress, you froze. She went out. Oh, Lord. You're back. You're back. You're back. All right. I don't know what happened. Lord, it's been an evening tonight. I think she's getting, yeah, you're getting your sound. There you go.
Okay.
Yes,
you see, when you start speaking truth, anything can happen.
All day long. Did you freeze again?
Okay. All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, so as I became a mature Black woman, I decided, and again, this is utilizing self-determination, I decided that I was going to change certain things, and for a very specific reason. So usually most people that know me, if you hear someone say, oh, I know Sister Filet, or I know Dr. Chi, or whatever, that's my friend, 9 times out of 10, that person does not know me. That's your first red flag that they don't really know me. Because anyone that really knows me know that that's not a word that I use to connect with people, to embrace people, and I generally don't allow anyone to do it with me. And the reason is because over the years, I've had people to really, shall I say, fake the funk. And because they might have had an interaction with me at one point in time, they would run around and tell people, oh yeah, that's my friend. And I might have spent 30 minutes with these people, or I might have done some check with, or whatever. My point is, people take for granted your relationship with them, and they will go to other people and make it seem like they have a relationship with you when they really don't. So I learned to cut that right off because it has created problems in the past. People have been misrepresenting me under the illusion that because they had some interaction with me, that we were friends. That's not how I roll. So now you are my sister, which I value more than friendship.
Okay.
Okay, which I'll go into that another time. At any rate, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Sister Nita. I truly value you as my sister. And here's why I say that. Over these past 25 years, I've encountered a lot of people on every kind of realm you can imagine. I've sat with kings. I've sat with winos. I've sat with Congress people. I've sat with crackheads. See? And I do that because I've always made myself accessible, because I've learned that our people function on many different levels. And as soon as you lock yourself out of the box from them, you begin to become a part of the system in such a way that you become a part of the problem instead of part of the solution. Now, before I do my presentation tonight, and I'm gonna cut it short because I do have a PowerPoint that I want to share, but I don't believe there's going to be enough time and I don't want to rush through it. So I'm just going to kind of give you some one-on-one things. One, this is called Black History Month, and we're getting ready to go into Women's History Month. Isn't it ironic? We talk all this stuff about reparations and the various things, and I thank those that came before me for your wonderful presentation, Sister Nita and the brother before me. And Sister Nita, if I may, I'd like to add 3 more names. One, Sister Njeri Agani, who was one of the co-chairs of NCOBRA.
Yes.
Also, yeah. I also want to mention who just recently passed, Senator Bill Owens, who was one of the first elected officials to introduce reparations on the Senate level in Boston.
Wow.
And the other person, yeah. And there was another person I wanted to mention as well. And many are not familiar with him, which is why we started our We Charge Genocide 21. Note, you have to say 21 in order to get the full scope. But most are not familiar with Dr. Robert Brock.
Yes.
Dr. Robert Brock, who fortunately, the We Charge Genocide 21 has connected to almost every area that we're going to present, meaning Mother Callie House. How can we not talk about reparations and not talk about, or talk about reparations and not talk about Mother Callie House in the 1800s? Even though she didn't call it reparations, it was ex-slave compensation. And so we've connected to the Callie House Center in Tennessee in order to make certain that we are moving in accordance with the spirit, the work, the energy of those who have come before us. So in September of this year, we will be holding the Reparatory Justice Now Summit, Labor Day weekend, September 1st through the 4th. Now, what is so interesting and wonderful about this summit is we have a formula that we're presenting to the masses of our people. We call it R for J. The letter R, the number 4, and the letter J. Why? I've heard 2 words mentioned tonight, which is applicable to our We Charge 21 project, and it is reparations and restitution. Those are 2 areas of law, and they actually should have 2 kind of different applications. Not necessarily, but depending on your strategy. And that's why I'm glad you mentioned, Sister Nita, that I am a strategist. I'm a tactician. And I say that because you don't hear many Black women say that. And so I have to, being the daughter of Harriet, our mentor, I have to say that. All right. At any rate, so there's 2 other areas that we focus on. So again, it's reparations, restitution, but what about retribution? There is a thing called retributionary law, which means punishment. There's also restoration law. Now, for most, it has meant present day to refer to those who are who have so-called committed a crime, and they want to make they want to do restoration by meeting the person and blah blah. That's one phase. We're saying restorative justice in the context of reparations, restitution, and retribution. So that's our formula. Why do we use a formula? Again, we've learned from the great saint, Queen Mother Moore. Yes, we call her saint, because with Million Woman March, for those who are not familiar, you might have thought that was just an event, and we're glad that people did, because it gave us the opportunity to really grow and learn. But it was always designed to be a movement. If people had taken the time to study or research it, you would have seen that. The enemy did. That's why I was invited to speak at MIT. That's why I was invited to speak at Harvard's sister college, Wesleyan or something like that, what it is. My point is, I've never been invited to speak at not one HBCU, not one Black Studies or African Studies department at all, with the exception of the Wharton School of Business. The Black MBAs invited me there. But my point is, we talk about history, we talk about all these things, but yet we won't even recognize the history that's in our midst. We wait till people are dead to want to recognize them. And so the Million Woman March is, in fact, the largest gathering in the world of any women anywhere ever in one location, an estimated 2.5 million. Now, note, from a historical perspective, no existing organization, no large sum of money to start with, not a well-known person to start it, no corporate sponsoring, no major benefactors. Who has done that? Now, of course, the Million Man March, which greatly inspired me, because I took my sons to make sure that they were, were there. But the point is, you had Minister Farrakhan, known all over the country, parts of the world. You had an organization that was already in existence for roughly 50 years that had mosques all over the country. You had political connections, et cetera, et cetera. Million Woman March didn't have any of that, period. It was started by one Black woman first, started with my money first, right? Formulated from me first. And of course, it grew from there. But I have to tell the truth, because I've heard so many stories. I've heard so many stories over the years. It's just unfreaking believable. But that's why on Monday, I'm putting out the 100 amazing facts about the Million Woman March, so that people will really now have no more excuse to either tell lies, have misconception, plagiarize, or just be right out silly. And deal with this reality that MWM, and by the way, it's...
We lost her? Okay. I'm gonna text her real quick, tell her, we lost you again? Oh, she's coming back. Okay. Your mic's not on yet.
Okay, you hear me
There
now?
you go.
We
Yes.
keep this. Okay. So
Yeah.
again, for the sake of history, family, please let's do this correctly. Don't just do whatever folks want to do with this. Respect history. It's Million Woman March, just like it was Million Man. You don't hear people talk about the Million Men's March, the Million Man's March, the Million Men March. You don't hear that. But with us, they say whatever they gosh darn well please. It's just like the Million Man March. It was the Million Woman March. Why? Because as Sister Nina mentioned earlier, and I'm going to connect the black dots for you, because the Million Woman March represent the mother of civilization. There's only one of that. The Million Woman March represents that. How do we know that? Just take a look. We reached across the board, from the grassroots through the glass ceiling, from Taquisha on the corner to Queen Minnie Mandela. We had it all, professional, students, generations, etc. If that wasn't representing the mother of civilization, I don't know what was. Not only that, we demonstrated self-determination at its best. We sold pies, cookies, T-shirts, and whatever in order to initially finance it. You see, my first donation, you know where that came from? And this is in the 100 Amazing Facts. It came from folks in prison.
Wow.
That was our first donations from prison.
Wow.
You have to understand this. You see, and during 25 years ago, you could send $1 through the mail. I know, because we got them. You see, and so we're saying these things because people need to really not only respect and honor our ancestors, but also respect and honor your history, both past and present. Lastly, and then I'm going to go into the We Charge Genocide 21 project. The Million Woman March will commemorate 25 years of nonstop work and commitment in a few months. We will be bringing forth what we call the Black Print Agenda 25. It is a 3-year projection. Now, we actually started in 2020, but once COVID hit, we had to readjust some things. Now, Sister Anita, she has conveyed, she came for the 20-year anniversary, which was 2017. That's when we officially launched the We Charge Genocide 21 project. And over the years, we have been watching and waiting. Now, I would be remiss if I did not say this. I am so thankful that Sister Anita invited me, Million Woman March, to this session, because over the years, there's only been 2 groups or chapters that felt the need to include us. And I have to say this because people need to be very clear. When you talk about unity, let me show you why that's BS. Particularly when it comes to folk that be talking all this stuff about unity and what we need to do and all of that. I'm like Shirley Chisholm. I'm unbought and unsold. Never had a grant, never had corporate sponsoring. And we have caught hell like you, Sister Nita, because of our work and because we would not back down and we would not kiss behind. And so we've been, pushed to the side, you see, and we're not having it anymore. Why would our historians not include us in modern history? And the 2 scholars that did, which I'll go into at another point, put in misinformation. Never interviewed me, but I digress. The point is, we're not having it anymore. And what I mean by that is the mother. And sometimes a mother has to spank their children and then give them a hug. And that's what's getting ready to happen. Because the misuse and the misunderstanding, et cetera, of Black women in this country can no longer continue in this manner. And for the record, I am not a feminist. So let's get that clear. I have sons and a daughter. And my sons will tell you, I'm mama all the way. Point being, we will no longer be categorized. Again, when a Black woman is strong and capable, we get these labels. Oh, she's angry. Oh, she's this. Oh, she's that. Well, the buck stops here. And what I mean by that is, yes, I'm angry. And anybody that isn't, after what has happened in this country to us as a people, are out of their freaking minds. Now, does that mean that I'm not diplomatic or I'm not capable of being holistic and apply, whatever? Absolutely. But don't get it twisted. Again, I'm Harriet's daughter. So again, that warrior spirit will always come through. But at the same time, I am mother. So what we're saying to our people and to our family, to our communities is, and Sister Anita put it in one of the pieces that went out earlier, wake up, stay woke. because we've seen these cycles before. Now, let's go back for a minute. You mentioned President Mario Bedelli from Philly, y'all. President Mario Bedelli, along with, and I have to say it's because the Philly folk have become so weak, so selloutish. It's the home boule. And again, I'm here in Philly. I heard you mention Philly earlier. They know me very well, but they will not include me in most things in this city because I will not bow down to these people. I'm in no politician's pocket. I'm not asking any politician to do anything that they're not supposed to do for their people. But because we will not hold them accountable, folks want to do some other things. Again, I'm not here to play games with people. I'm not, if you don't like me, that's fine, but you will respect me. And the other thing that you're going to do is not call me a liar because I'm telling the truth about what I'm saying here, particularly these folks in Philly. Well, anyway, I digressed again. So Baba Amari Obedelli from Philly, went to Temple University, got his doctorates. Mm-hmm. We talk about getting land, having our own nation. Our people did this 50 years ago. Where's the plan of action to take us to the next step? Well, that's what myself and MWM is here for. We were taught by Baba Amari Obedelli, Baba Herman Ferguson, Mama Alua Ferguson, and others. My Baba, who's still with us and helps me tremendously in terms of clarity, Baba Bilal Sunni Ali. We're getting ready to do a pre-plebiscite convention to kick it off. We talk about unity, but based on what? What's the mode of operations? So by holding a pre-plebiscite, and again, this is a 3-year process, but at least to begin to bring this to the masses. Now note, the We Charge Genocide 21 project, one of the first key steps is edify, educate, organize, mobilize the masses. Many of us talk to each other. We've read the books, we've been in the movement or done whatever, but what is the plan of action for the masses? And over these years, what we've noticed is that if you go in most communities, most neighborhoods, they don't know what the hell we're talking about when we talk about reparations or, genocide or whatever. So MWM made a conscious decision that we would take our time and go into the neighborhoods, our communities, and start bringing information one-on-one. So we started that process, but again, with COVID, it kind of nipped some things in the bud. But again, our strategy is to first connect with the masses of the people, at least introduce them to these ideas and concepts that many have been talking about for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Why do we keep limiting or excluding the masses? Well, MWM decided we're not going to do that. And again, as mother, we can't. These are our children. So we started that process. Now, again, we said we charge genocide. Again, I'm in Philly. The great Paul Robeson was in Philly. In fact, we connected to the Paul Robeson House in Philly. That's where we were doing our meetings before COVID hit. We were literally doing our meetings at the Paul Robeson House because we want our people to be clear that our work is indeed connected to our ancestors. We're just not having these conversations and saying the names of ancestors. We are literally going to the sources that have the information or that connects to the information directly. And in doing so, we have been able to really learn so much, to know how Paul Robeson was heartbroken, to learn how he had, suffered from mental illness at some point. After fighting for us, you see, after being, I don't call it blackball, I call it whiteballed, where he couldn't get a job, where he couldn't travel, because he did what? He stood up. 1951, Paul Robeson, William Patterson took the first petition to the United Nations to charge genocide. 1951, 70 years ago. this year. And we knew this and we were preparing to do something major last year, but again, COVID, made that schedule. We had to adjust things, but it was our intention to take our first 1 million signatures to the United Nations for last year, 2021. That's why part of Recharge Genocide 21. That was a part of it. But there's also 21 areas of crimes against humanity. 21 areas that have demand minimally. So when we say reparations in terms of enslavement, we're also saying environmental racism, as Sister Anita mentioned. She gave examples, Benton Harbor, Flint. Well, guess what? In Philadelphia last week, they released a report about the water here. And it's like that in other cities too. We know because we've done the research. The other area of genocide is gentrification. We've researched 7 cities, including Detroit, Chicago, Baltimore, DC. We have data on each one of those cities to show you that modern day genocide is practiced and exercised through social engineering and other formulas that the system now utilizes. One of them is gentrification. The areas that are being gentrified, if you understand the programming that they've implemented, which is now national, gentrification used to be kind of pocket stuff here, there. Now it's a national agenda. And if you understand it, you'll see the same things practiced, the patterns are all there. If there is a waterway, meaning if there's a location where there's water, a river, a waterway, what we call waterway, even a stream. If Black folks were living there, I guarantee you they won't be in the next 10 years. They've already been moved. Benton Harbor is a perfect example. Again, riverfront property, all of that stuff is being totally moved. Same thing here in Philadelphia. We have Cobb's Creek Parkway, et cetera, et cetera. This is all over the country. Anywhere where there's a waterway, anywhere where there is a railroad track that is operable, there will be no Black people in that area. Also, anywhere where there's a lot of land, foliage, and opening spaces, which in Philadelphia, they are creating it because they allow so many properties to be blighted that they had to be destroyed. They had to be abolished. So that left plots of land, you see. So anywhere that you find that, Black folks are not going to be there. The rent, etc., will not allow you to be there. So they've created this situation where you're not going to be able to say racism per se, because they're going to make sure that there's enough colored faces in that mix so that you can't say racism. So they'll have influential, or shall we say, they'll have Black folks at a certain income bracket that can afford to live in that area. So you're not going to be able to say, well, that's whites only. It'll be mixed with a few sprinkles here and there because they can afford it. So this thing is very systemically designed. Again, in most of your major cities, you have anywhere from 35 to 100 schools closed in the urban cities. Philadelphia, Detroit, Chicago, anywhere from 35 to 100 schools closed. What do you think happening with those schools? Right. Most of them are condominiums, lofts, etc., which means what? It tells you that that area is being gentrified, etc. So I'm not going to go a lot into that right now, but again, we've researched 7 cities. We can show that gentrification is modern day genocide. Again, environmental racism. Here's one that Sister Anita mentioned earlier, and it's a part of our 21 points. Crack cocaine. Mm-hmm. Now, with that, as you all know, she mentioned we had the real Rick Ross, that's what he's called, the real Rick Ross. We brought him here for a reason, because we knew we were going to cite crack cocaine as genocide. And so we're planning to bring him back this year for our 25-year anniversary, but also to be a part of We Charge Genocide Summit. Again, we're now planning to do testimonials because we say that the Black woman is public enemy number 2. The Black man is public enemy number 1, always has been. But the Black woman is public enemy number 2. Why is that? Because for crack cocaine, as an example, crack cocaine hit all of our communities and families in a way of devastation, needless to say. But for the Black woman, that's where it got even more diabolical. That's where it became a designer drug of the higher level. Why? Because the woman is the carrier of the baby, of the child, of the embryo. So if you had a woman, and you had many, unfortunately, who were in fact pregnant or soon to be pregnant, with crack cocaine in their system, what do you think that did to the child? In many instances, the child was in fact addicted. But then also the long-term effects was what? How many children are we looking at today that have all these different, Ritalin and all this other stuff? Why? You think that just happened out the clear blue sky? So the Black woman was public enemy number 2 because you got 2 for 1. When you got the Black woman, you also got the child. For the first time in history, at least recorded, for the first time, even during slavery, Black women didn't sell their children. But crack cocaine, unfortunately, some did. So you see, We Charge Genocide 21 is based on some very interesting dynamics. And we're saying again, the formula, because in law and in medicine, because we have to deal with compensation, we have to deal with what justice, but we also have to deal with healing. So with justice, law, and with medicine, healing, there's one connecting factor: remedies. Remedies. Therefore, reparations, restitution, retribution. Let's go to that for a moment. Well, let's back for a minute. Well, we know reparations. Restitution. MWM, We Charge Genocide, thanks to our dear sister Deidre Farmer-Perlman. She was the one initial filing against the corporations. I don't hear people talk about her much. Well, we're going to. We're going to. Because this is what has happened often with Black women in terms of certain work, certain areas of things. Unless you're co-signed by, unfortunately, brothers, you're not going to get the respect or the recognition. And unfortunately, this is something we're going to have to deal with in the future. Now, I'm not saying that people are just looking for recognition or looking, no, come on now. If we give recognition to the work that others do, why would it not be appropriate or proper to do it for a Black woman? Needless to say, it is, and it's going to be. Now, again, restitution. Well, we're going to be applying our remedies, our case, etc., to when it comes to restitution, primarily to corporations. That's how we're going to approach it. Reparations, we're dealing with government. Restitution, our focal point will be more so for corporations. Again, this is the way we've designed it. It is our structure, and we support others. Don't get me wrong. We support in Cobra. We support in Cobra. And a restitution study group. Okay. And that's a whole nother conversation about people coming in now to reparations because it's popular. Yes, I said it because I am. And then not give due to others. That's why, again, we cite Mother Callie House. We cite Queen Mother Moore. We cite Dr. Robert Brock. Oh, and by the way, Dr. Yusuf Klee. Oh. And of course, Malcolm X. Yes. Not so much for reparations, but when it comes to Black human rights, what was he doing in the last 2 years' life? Where did he go? 1964, Africa, to address the African Union on our behalf. Anyway, we'll get to that tomorrow. But going again, reparations, restitution, retribution. Why retribution? People are talking about reform, police reform. We're saying the heck reform, punish these people. Punish them.
That will reform
We
them.
have to come up with something else other than, oh, we want reform. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't do that, but you have two hands, right? We tend to think you just do one thing on one hand. And I'm saying, I'm ambidextrous. For those who don't know what that means, I use both of my hands. One a little more than the other, but both of them pretty well. The point is, there's no way that these people, these cops, should be getting away with killing our people, and just then the loss goes to the civil, and they get some money. No, these people need to be punished. And it's happening a little more, but we need to make that statement as a part of reparatory justice. See, this is where it becomes different. We're not asking things in the same way that someone else would. We're using a card that no one else has. Oh, what is it called? You enslaved us. You kidnapped us. You raped, murdered, tortured, hung, beat us. So whatever somebody else is talking about, or the way they're talking about it, that's not us. We're saying reparatory justice all across the board. So when we talk about what should happen to police when they do certain things to us, is not the same as someone else of color. And let me clarify this again. I am not speaking for people of color. I put in too much work, blood, sweat, and tears in what we do for 25 years. So be real clear. I am not representing people of color. Now, don't get me wrong. We have allies, we have associates, we have, people that we work with. I do a lot with Mumia Abu Jamal's freedom campaigns, all kinds of people involved in that. So don't get me wrong. We work with anyone that, we think we can work with. But when you hear me talk about we charge Genocide 21, I'm talking about highly melanated Black African people, period. No ifs, ands, maybes, none of that. It's a shame I didn't say that, clarify that. But for some folks, I'm learning you better make yourself clear. As Malcolm said, make it plain. Well, if that's not plain enough for you, then that's not my problem. The point is this. We have two areas, those who were kidnapped and brought here and those who are already here. Because we know the positions, we know the psychology. So we've incorporated it all. But 9 times out of 10, if you were highly melanated, you were still mistreated, even if you were free or already here. Okay, so get with the program. All right. So we're creating societies, which you'll hear more about with our We Charge Genocide 21, because we understand how this thing works based on Queen Mother Moore, Malcolm X, and others. We looked at the models. As the brother mentioned, the RNA did it 50 years ago. They mapped out Mississippi, Alabama, and other locations. So we can have these conversations, but what is the plans of action that we're talking about? Note, MWM will hold its 25-year anniversary this year with a reunion. However, it will kick off a year-long observance. Why? Because we've always said we come from march to movements. So in the next year, you will literally see our action plan unveiled, extended. For example, we have began to write letters to various Black elected officials. Why? We're letting them know that we're getting ready to do a polling, a survey, because all over the country, we want to be able to see what is your position on reparations. So we want to see it in writing. So the summit that we're doing, this will be the plans of action that people are asked to participate in, that for your city, for your state, Help us with the poll, whereby all of the Black elected officials first. We want to know from them first. Our people are always first. We want to know, what is your position, city council person? What is your position, assembly person? What is your position, state rep, on reparations, pro or con? Straight up. Because these people want to be elected again. Now, speaking of that, we recognize the work of Fannie Lou Hamer. We recognize the work of Ella Baker. We recognize the work of Shirley Chisholm. What does that mean? Do we have our own parties, y'all? Well, MWM, come next month, will be introducing the Million Woman Party as one of our parties for self-defense, self-determination, self-reliance, and self-governance. Why? Because our great Kwame Ture taught us what? Organize, organize, organize. And I was blessed to sit with him a few months before his transition, because in African tradition, you are often encouraged to sit with the elders. And some of us are taught that you really need to ask them permission, just as Sister Nita did in opening. You do certain things, you do libation, you ask the elder for permission to continue, etc. Well, when I sat with Baba Kwame Ture, I asked him permission to continue my work. And he granted that permission. In fact, he said, and not only—
Ooh, Empress? Uh-oh. 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 All right. I don't know what happened, but what I will do, I wanted to make sure, because I had promised everybody, I don't know what happened. I wanted to make everybody able to ask questions, because I don't know if you were doing like me, but I'm writing down notes and I have a couple of questions, and I wanted to open it up so that those people who hung with us, hung tight all the way till now, I wanted to give you a chance to speak. So are we able to open up the room? If anyone has anything they'd like to say, oh God, did we lose her? Okay, if anyone has anything they would like to say or a question that they have, I'm hoping Empress comes back. I think, yes, the mic did something. But if you have a question, just raise your hand, or you'd like to say something, raise your hand, and then we will have your mic open so you can go ahead and ask your question, say what you have to say. And I know people are bashful, so, all right. This was where Empress isn't here, but she was saying she called it white balls. And the reason I said I call them black balls is because I feel like they were taken from our men and that's what you're throwing at me. So I don't appreciate what the castration that went on, and that's why I call it that. I was also writing down the notes about when Brother Jabbar was talking, and he was mentioning about the reciprocity that needs to be demanded, because we are now very dependent on white people. That someone else was mentioning to me earlier today that Martin Luther King had said to, I think it was Empress who said that's what he said to Paul Robeson, that I fear that I have integrated my people into a burning house. So I wanted to say that since we are that dependent, that yes, when we're talking about divestment, we have to have a plan on how we can become independent, because we went from having grocery stores to now, if Walmart closes, y'all, how long will it be before your children are hungry? Because we don't have a farm and our own cattle or chickens. So anyone else with a question? Oh, Empress, you had gone and we had gone to questions. Yep. So that, yes, because I had looked at the time. So is there any other question Somebody else? I don't see any hands up. Are they allowed to raise their hands or the mics are unmuted? All right, Lori Rutledge, can you recognize Lori Rutledge? Her mic, I hope the mic is coming on, and I'm hoping Lori is short for female.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
You know what? First, let me just say thank you, thank you, thank you to, oh my God, Dr. Fillet and Anita. I met you yesterday at the Reparations task meeting.
Yes.
Listen, when I tell you what you said, Dr. Fillet, about gentrification, I was born and raised in Detroit, and it almost brought tears to my eyes. I had to fight it back because I'm 62 years old. I was born in Detroit, and I remember a city, and I've been sharing this with younger people in my family because they don't have a vision of prosperous African American communities.
That's right.
And so I tell them, I remember when I could walk around the corner to the beauty shop, when I could walk around the corner to the little grocery store and take a Coke bottle and get a handful of candy. I have memories of a prosperous Black community everywhere my father moved us. My father migrated from the South with a 6th grade education, worked at GM, Ford, Chrysler, Packer, and he took care of me, my 2 sisters, and my mother. She was a homemaker. Unfortunately, today, and I know I offend people when I say this, younger generations are more educated, but yet they are not. In certain ways, yes, they have received book education, but there's just certain things that they're missing. And if we don't educate them about community, they will continue getting their pieces of paper and going and living wherever they choose to live, not realizing that before the civil rights movement, we were forced to live together as people. And for some reason, it's like listening to Dr. Fillet, that thought just keeps coming back to me. How are we going to restore our communities? It's vital.
Sister, thank you so much. And just briefly, just to give you a general idea, because again, we've been working on this for 5 years. So let me give you a quick response and plan to action, because that's what our position is. For everything that I present, we have an action plan for it. And I'm not talking about just some poo-put stuff. For example, with the We Charge Genocide 21 project, we will be demanding from at least 7 cities to start with. We want properties. In Philadelphia, there's 44,000 either actual vacant properties or what we call plots of land.
Okay.
And so the first ones we're going for are the ones that are owned by either the city, the state, or the federal government. Again, this is a part of reparatory justice. So by organizing in every city what we call Black human rights cadres committees, those groups who sign on to the We Charge Genocide 21 project will be the ones who will be able to really get their hands into what we're doing, which is we want some of those properties to do what? To utilize them in our communities. We also are going to begin filing class action suits against cities. Okay. Why? Again, going back to gentrification. In most urban cities, these are Black communities that have been allowed to be blighted. Yeah. In Detroit, and Sister Anita can tell you that we've come there several times. We even did a conference in Detroit in 2017 on gentrification. Yeah. No, they let those houses stay vacant for years. Then they started having fires, right? Yes. They did the same thing in Camden. They did the same thing in other cities. So the city governments let these properties sit. Why? Because by law, federal law, once you declare an area as a blighted, and that's the key word, keep that in mind. Okay. Once you declare an area blighted, it then enables the city to begin the city planning. Right. And this is when not only federal dollars can come in, but it gives them the right to start moving stuff around, because a blighted area is known to have a high rate of crime, a high rate of drug infestation, etc. Once that is designated as blighted, the city government can do whatever they want by law, but they have to deem it blighted and other terminologies like that. You see, so this.
Well, let me interject right.
One last thing, real quick.
Okay.
We called Detroit Ground Zero.
Well, you know what?
Like one of the first ones.
Maybe it's meant for me to share this with you, because let me tell you about a situation, and I'm gonna try my best to say this as quick as possible because I don't want to take up all your time. I purchased a land bank home. You know, I'm sure you all know about Detroit Land Bank.
Sure.
I purchased the land bank home, and as you know, or as most people know, you need anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000 to fix up a land bank home.
Yep.
The median income in Detroit is what, anywhere from 33 to 35,000. They give you 6 months to do this, so you know it's humanly impossible for someone in Detroit to purchase a land bank home and restore it within 6 months. That's number one. Number two, I live in the house where I grew up in. My father purchased this house in 1969. I moved back here to take care of my parents before they transitioned, and I'm still here. I lost my mother in 15, my father in 12. I'm still here. My parents, my sister downstairs inherited the home. I live upstairs. We all live here together. There's 2 lots across the street. Now I want you all to listen closely at this, because this blew me away. I tried to purchase the 2 lots across the street from me. From the Detroit Land Bank, because now they have the side lot program and the neighborhood lot program.
Right.
They told me that because my name is not on the house that I live in as a primary resident, that I cannot purchase the 2 lots across the street from me. So I filed a complaint with Fair Housing, the Federal Fair Housing Administration. They sent me a letter saying that I didn't have a complaint in uncertain terms. And I'm saying to myself, well, how is it if I'm living across the street from the house of the lots, but a man next door who owns a house that lives in another country can purchase the lots? That has to be, there has to be a violation. The people down the street from me who have been renting for 15 years, I watched their children grow up, and they can't purchase the lots across the street. But the man next door to the lots, who is a slumlord, he can purchase the lots. Something is wrong with this system.
And that is true. Now, here's one way around it, though. This is pulling out that little law degree, is if your sister's name is on the house.
She does not want to buy the lots. I asked her.
So
you got to pinch her. I'm sorry, did I say that? No, I didn't say that. Anyway, the reason is she ain't buying it for her. But
I know.
Don't you, and if she doesn't get that,
she said no. My sister said no.
Can I interject something for a minute? Because again, I'm like a computer with certain things, and I like to override it. And what I mean by that is this: if we keep trying to play this game the way they give it to us, we are pretty much setting ourselves up to lose. This is why we interject. Rather than trying to deal with it from the civil rights aspect, we deal with it from the human rights aspect. Everything that you all are talking about right now is primarily the civil structure, which, don't get me wrong, it is applicable in certain things. How you go to the next level, how you interject, again, a different approach, a different strategy, etc., is to interject something different. It's like the saying goes, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect the different results, that's a part of insanity.
Right.
So very rarely are you hearing an argument represented and presented adequately that says, based on human rights violations, y'all got to do this. See, as long as we keep going to them, asking them or saying to them, well, you know, and following their procedure and protocol, we are then subjected to have to do it that way.
Their way.
The reason why we're changing it or shifting it somewhat is to override what presently exists. Again, what you all just said is what anyone can do. Anyone. What makes us different is we're saying something that is applicable to a harm, a violation that has occurred.
Yes.
That's a different argument.
Yes. Because
see?
you know what? I really, when they said that, I really felt violated.
Sure.
And I ended up attending the city council meeting, spoke to the woman from Land Bank, and I said to her, I said, something, what you all are doing, you, first of all, a house in 2017 I tried to get, you all told me no because you said I didn't have the money to fix it up. And I said, who gives you the right to do that? Who gives you the right to make that assessment?
Let me just share briefly with you, and I'm gonna make this quick. Please form in your community a Black Human Rights Committee. And tomorrow I'll go more in depth because that's gonna put you in a legal position. No, one of the things that we're going to do is file class action suits. Now, again, this helps with educating our people. It also enables us to do a certain other type of research. Now, note, in your community, now, first of all, land banks are jokes and not joke because they're funny. When you understand why they have been structured, they are what we call a one-stop shop. They were designed so that the developers could have an easier route to obtain these properties or these locations. Before, it used to be you had to go to zoning, you had to go to this, you had to go to that, license and inspection, you had to go. Well, now with land bank, they fast forward that stuff right for you. It's all synchronized. You see, so you have to know and understand how this stuff is structured. Now, in filing class action suits, this is what happens. In every Black community, there's thousands of groups and organizations, right? Many of them service the community. Many of them are 501c3s. And even the ones that are not 501c3s often have been cited by city officials and others as being serviceable in their community. They get awards, they get articles written about them for doing services in their community, right? Now, why would the city government not give those groups and organizations the capability first to obtain a property to better service the community, particularly if that group of organization have shown that they have serviced the community? And you know that they have because oftentimes the city has recognized them. Therefore, we're saying that something has gone on very fishy here. Why would the city have not created a mechanism for these groups and organizations to have been able to have the opportunity, possibly, to obtain these properties or some property to better service the community? Well, it's a rhetorical question. We already know the answer. The answer is they never want to do that. They never think that was never the plan.
It's a land grab.
That was never the plan.
That's
and
right.
Here's I'm going to open it up if anyone else had a question. If
thank you, ladies.
Else had, thank you, Lori. Thank you. And anyone else? Joan has her hand up. And I guess you will now make it so that she can have a mic. Yes. Joan? Uh-oh, we lost her. I guess she's coming on. All right, I don't know what happened. All right. Well, let's see. I suspect she'll be back because she will tell me she's going to text me or call me in a moment.
I can hear you. Yeah, I had muted myself by mistake, but I just wanted to say I was trying to leave because I've been going since this morning, but everything that has been said is so vital. And I appreciate everything. I was at the Million Women's March.
No S.
No S.
was there. I was there. And we had just left Gordon Parks's opening his retrospective show. And he, you know, the person who Malcolm X went to when they bombed his house. We had just left his opening in DC because he was like a surrogate dad to my sister and I. Anyway, I just wanted to say everything. I'm a resident of the city of Detroit, and I've been waiting for that word class action. Yes. And when you said class action, I was like, wow. I come from an era. I may be the most senior on this. I'm not on this with this group, but I come from an era of born in Detroit, grew up on a farm in Georgia, back and forth my whole life. And the unity is the most important thing. I saw people work together. They didn't have to like each other to work together. Right. They didn't have to believe in everything. And that is the key. But class action suit, because this is a human rights, the systemic racism is a human rights violation on every level.
That's right.
And I have been on the receiving line of so much of it in Detroit, Michigan, that is unbelievable. So I won't belabor you with the details of my case, but I just had to say how much I appreciate everybody, Anita, for doing this, and all the speakers. How do you pronounce your last name, Dr.? I think I know you, but I can't. How do I pronounce your name?
Okay, you're talking about me?
Yeah, you.
Okay. Okay, so my name is Sister Empress Filet Chionesu. That's why some people call me Empress Chi, because it's spelled Chihonesu. So the first 3 letters is Chi. So, but it's Chi. Break it into syllable. Break it into white folk syllables. Chi O Ne Su. And that's pretty much how it's pronounced. But Empress Chi is fine, or Sister Filet, whichever you prefer. I'm just not Ms. I'm never. Anybody call me Ms. something? They don't know me. I do not allow that. I'm not Miss Ann, Miss Sally, none of that.
Well, here's what I was going to say. One thing about class action.
Thank you all. I just want to make that comment. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. One thing about class actions is that there's a lot of legal maneuvering that goes on to keep certain cases from ever reaching class action status. So that's one of the things that happened with the CIA cases.
Keep in mind, from a strategic, that's why we're doing it from a strategic standpoint. We have to educate our people and allow them to get involved where they can get involved in. See, it's a multi-tier, a multi-level operation. When you say to a person, for example, and I'm gonna wait till tomorrow, but one of our platform issues is that the rescinding of student loan debt. Now, of course, people are now talking about, Biden has already done that. You see, Black folks get real crazy. Meaning, why would other people be getting so-called student loan forgiveness before us? How would somebody sit back and let that happen and not say anything? You see, there's no way that somebody else should have been getting some student loan forgiveness. And I'm not saying forgiveness because we ain't forgiving them for nothing. But the point is, no one should have ever gotten that before we got that. So again, to educate our people. So when we say class action, it's not that we really expect these people to do A, B, N, or C. It's a part of a strategy.
Yes. And that is exactly what happens. If you have to exhaust domestic measures before a case gets to eligible, a genocide case has to exhaust domestic measures, which means you go to the trial court, you go to the appellate court, you go to the Supreme Court before you can take it to the world court. And that anybody in practice law under this system we have knows how expensive that is, even when you're doing it yourself, let alone paying somebody. But if you're doing it yourself, how much does it cost? And so with that already happening with one case, and a crime like genocide involving the murders of millions of people, then I don't want Flint to have to do that again, because y'all don't have time. I don't want Benton Harbor to do that again. Y'all don't have time. It also had conspiracy on there. And if you saw 2 or more acts happen since not these cases were filed after 1999. So if it has anything happened that can be considered genocide to Black people since 1999. And let's just limit it to Michigan, because I'm sure that can go on forever and ever. Amen. But now Michigan is in the hot seat because one of the plaintiffs is here. All right, it didn't start here because I was in Florida, but
And
tag,
Sister
you're in.
Nita, please remind folks that tomorrow we will be doing a PowerPoint presentation for
Yes.
tomorrow. Do you have a time for me for that for tomorrow?
I'm going to give you that in a few minutes, because I
cool.
wanted to let anyone else who had something, because I'm gonna try and end this at 10 o'clock so that if anybody hasn't had dinner like me, then you can go ahead and try and eat. But I wanted anyone else who had a question, had a comment, had a story you wanted to share. This is not just talking heads talking to you like I'm an expert. No, I might know what I know, but as you can see, I'm a blind person feeling on an elephant. I have the trunk, somebody else has the tail. We're not wrong, we're just blind. So yeah, we're all when we put our information together, look at what we have finally done. We have put the elephant together, and thank God the elephant stood still for all of this and didn't try and run. Anyway, anyone else with a question? Beulah, would you let her have a mic?
All right. Good evening, you all. I have the question in relation to the class action lawsuit. Now, Dr. Feely, she mentioned that no one should have gotten the student loan forgiveness before us. Now, does that class action involve any student loan forgiveness for Black people?
Well, the class action that I was initially talking about was dealing with gentrification. So we have another strategy for this. The Recharge Genocide 21 has that as part of our demand. And what we're doing as part of the educational piece is letting our people, our students and our parents in particular, know that they need to take a stand on that. This is why we are presenting for next month, or is it next month, we're doing a National Black Students Conference. Because again, the Black students were very important during the 1950s and 60s. That's how a lot of the Black Studies departments came about. But they need to now know they have a vested interest in what we're talking about, and so does anyone that has a coming school. So to wrap that up, there's another strategy that we're applying, and I'll go into that tomorrow, because remember, there's another election coming in 2 years. We will be ready, but we have to be organized. See, to talk about this, what we need to do and all that, that's a good conversation and we need to have it, but we have to produce the steps. So we'll be conveying some of that at the upcoming summit, which will be in September. And note, we selected September 1st through the 4th. Why? That's Labor Day weekend. Our position is there could be no more discussion, celebration, observance of any kind of labor in the US without there being some critical analysis and action taken for the free, brutal labor that our people did.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. And did you have more, Beulah, because we have one more person with their hand up? Did you have a question or comment or follow up?
I'll tune in tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you. We love it. We love it, and we love y'all for coming back. Because some of you all know we had some technical difficulties. I'm gonna see if I can fix it for tomorrow. All right, there's a Sonia Anderson. Go ahead, Sonia.
Just a quick question about how to obtain the recording.
Yes, we're going to work with that with UIN. That will be, since you are registered, then that will be added to the email that'll be going out probably next month, because we are at the end of February, but that will go out at the next month so that everyone will know how to access that same link. We want to make this recording available as well for the United Nations ambassadors. They were invited. And as I expected, if you are in Geneva, Switzerland, and it is now 10 o'clock at night, it's probably something like 4 o'clock in the morning. So I don't expect any of them to be here right now, but it will be recorded and they'll have the link, and everybody will have the link so that if they wanted to listen in, they could.
Sister Anita,
All right.
can I interject one thing to Sister Beulah for a moment? I just want to share this with her, that not only are we saying that there must, the student loan debt, Black student loan debt must be rescinded, that's the terminology, or eliminated, whichever you prefer, but also connected to that is the demand for there to be tuition-free higher education, trade, skills development for the future. That's the difference. So while some are talking about student loan debt cancellation or whatever, there's a simultaneous thing that we're saying for Black students, parents, for Black people, and that is student loan rescinding it, and by 2025, for all Black folks, tuition-free education, period. See, just like other groups of peoples have achieved certain things, so must we. The so-called indigenous Native Americans, they got casinos, some of them. And they definitely got some other stuff going on. They ain't got nothing to do with the system. So we have a very similar position, but we haven't claimed it as such. We keep trying to play this thing the way some other people have been telling us to, and that's just not going to work, at least not on our end. So again, we'll go more into that tomorrow. Sister Anita, is it going to be the same link that we're given to that? Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it'll be a different link.
Okay, gotcha.
For a different, any other questions or comments? Anyone else?
If I may.
Yes.
It's time again. Tomorrow, can we discuss the Freedman Bank that went under?
The Freedman Bank.
Right. You know, all the Black people had money in there, $5, $50, and that money was basically stolen.
Yeah.
U.S. Congress. So tomorrow.
Right, and again, in our We Charge Genocide 21, we've included that along with Tulsa and other areas that have been bombed in particular. And note, and again, we have a sister who lives in Tulsa who's on one of our committees and is on the committee in Tulsa for the rebuilding of Tulsa. So we are citing those as a part of the We Charge Genocide 21. And note, as we proceed in every major city with the committee that's being formed there's going to be testimonials, and there's also going to be inquest sessions, because we want to put on record various things that need to be documented by city. The committee, the Black Human Rights Committee in every city will have the responsibility of documenting the history of slavery in your city. See, when we go to the United Nations, we're not going with just, all that's important, but we're gonna present this stuff in such a way that, anyone that has just a little bit of sense is going to be able to comprehend what we're saying, and with the evidence of not just present, not just the past, but in such a way that it links it so well. So again, in Detroit, we want to know the history of slavery in Detroit, in Philadelphia.
And quite honestly, this is why there were individuals, because you could have slaves kind of, sort of, under the federal law. It's a complicated thing that technically Michigan was not supposed to have slavery. Was there slavery? Oh yeah. But Michigan on an official level supposedly prides itself as being one of the last stops on the Underground Railroad before you cross the Detroit River and get into Canada. And so that's what I mean by we're so used to running away to Canada from Detroit. So that's why I did. Doesn't work that way no more. But we want to give anyone else, because it's 10 after. 5 after 10, I want to give anyone else a chance to express yourself before we close. Anyone else? All right, I don't see a hand up. Okay, well, we must thank our panelists this evening. Beulah, is your hand still up, or is that from, it didn't go down from before? Did you want to say something else?
To know the session tomorrow, do we have to register again for that session?
No, but the link that you have for that session is not going to work. So we're going to fix some things tonight, and then you'll have an email that you should be getting that'll have the correct link. Okay.
All right.
Yes, because that's part of what happened with the whole thing, why we started so late. There was something wrong with, anyway. So sabotage averted. We got it done. But anybody else? All right. So we were able to talk about genocide and what we're going to do about it, as Brother Jabbar said, because no, we're not standing here waiting to be the target, but we have survived. We have survived another round, y'all, and it's like, what are we going to do now? We can't keep living this way. All right, so what we will do for tonight is we will close. All minds clear, all hearts clear. No more questions. Well, everyone, I want to close with a Harambe, but we can't do Harambe like we do because this is in webinar format. So I'm just going to do one Harambe, but I'm gonna hold it. And the Harambe means let's all pull together. And we all pulled this together, so thank God. Harambe! All right, good night, and we will see you tomorrow. You can end the recording. Okay. All right, look. All right. All right. So we will get some links reset. You might have sent that already. Did Horace leave already too? Oh, there he is. Do you want to send me the links for tomorrow, tonight, and then I can send the email out? I'll probably do it in the morning because people are probably going to go to bed, not look at their email tonight, and then it'll get lost. So, but if you send me that link, I'll fix that and send that out tomorrow, and also send them a text message.